Right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar Wednesday. Today, we'll be talking about some proven strategies that will help accelerate 11th grade SBAC math success. My name is Shay Alwasanya. I am the community manager here at Parsec. And if you're joining us live, feel free to share your name and what school you're with. Before we jump in, we have a few quick housekeeping items. The first one is today's session will be recorded, and you'll receive the recording and slides by email after the webinar. And then please use the chat to interact with us and ask any questions as our amazing hosts go through their session. We're excited to make this interactive, so please don't be shy in the chat. And if you have any questions, you can always come off of mute. So as a reminder, we like to do a recap. Last week, we had our second superintendent webinar in our series, and we talked about leading through crisis. Next webinar, we will have an open hour or like an office hours with Ryan, Roy, and I, where anyone who has Parsec can come and ask any questions that are related to analytics and real, and we'll show you demos. So getting into today's webinar, I'm super excited to introduce our two presenters from Next Gen Math. We first have Dr. Michael Williams, who is the Director of Partner Success. Dr. Williams leads professional development and implementation, partnering with districts to drive measurable math growth. With over 15 years of experience as a teacher and a principal, he brings deep knowledge in instruction and SBAC achievement. And then we are also joined by Dr. Thomas Deus, who is the Director of Special Projects at Next Gen Math. He is an amazing curriculum developer and a data scientist who designs math content and helps schools translate standards and frameworks into practical high-impact strategies. So today they'll walk through how to strategically align SBAC blueprints, the California Math Framework, and your current high school math pathways so that you can prioritize the highest leverage standards and create a focused practical countdown to your CAASPP plan. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to both Dr. Williams and Dr. Deus.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to flip over to a screen share here. As Shay said, I'm Dr. Williams from Next Gen Math. I'm excited to be here today to share some knowledge with you all. Again, as Shay shared, we have some quick training goals today just to understand and gain some powerful insights into the standardized test design of the SBAC or the CAASPP. Connect that CAASPP to either your integrated or traditional pathway courses, and we'll talk a little bit about making sure that we are ready for test prep and review based on some real-time data so that you have an actionable plan as you get ready to move into your SBAC. It's coming pretty soon. If you can drop into the chat who's in the room today, share your name, your role, your school, what you teach, or whatever that is that you might do at your school site, and what do you hope to gain from today's session? That'll really help us kind of tailor, make sure that we're addressing some of the questions that you might have. So when you get time, you can pop that into the chat for us. That'll be helpful. And our big question that we always start with is, what are your biggest challenges when preparing 11th grade students for CAASPP success in math? Feel free to drop some answers in the chat. I'll tell you some of the responses. We got a poll here. In terms of what are some of your biggest challenges. Oftentimes, we get responses like lots of courses, so many standards, how to prioritize, test fatigue, taking the test seriously. We get lots and lots of those different answers. And so today we'll talk a little bit more about how we can address those things. So I'm going to turn it over to Thomas, who is going to go through the SBAC blueprint and our math framework insights. Dr. Deus?
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Okay, and I'll go ahead and I'll just tell you to move forward whenever it's time to move forward.
Sounds great.
That's perfect with the slides. Perfect. Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Deus from Next Gen Math, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the SBAC blueprint. The SBAC blueprint is really helpful because it gives us some insights into how the students are going to be tested at the end of the year. And there are some important ideas that we can pull out of those. Of a study of the SBAC. The SBAC is broken down into, as you probably all know, it's broken down into 4 claims. And we focus in on claim 1 today. That's because claim 1 is the only place on the SBAC where students are assessed on grade level math. And you'll notice the DOK levels here of 1 and 2. because we're looking at just do you know the math? And that's about 52% of their score. Claims 2, 3, and 4 are your SMPs. So the grade level math is not necessarily at the student's grade level, but they're really checking, can you take math and apply it to real world situations? You do get higher DOK levels on those questions, but we are going to be focusing on claim 1. That is, and I think my colleague Paula is going to be putting into the chat the handouts so that you can take a look at that claim 1. That's going to be the first item that shows up on that handout when you click on that handout for your grade level. Great. So taking a look at claim 1. Now remember, this is the only place on the SBAC where, or on the CAASPP, where students are assessed on grade level math. We can pull out some important insights here. If we take a look at the way it's organized, you'll notice that it says assessment targets at the top and then priority cluster. If you are taking notes, you might want to note that target and cluster are used interchangeably. The words target and cluster are used interchangeably on the SBAC. And we think of a target as just like an umbrella. Under that umbrella are a group of standards, right? And so each one of these lines is one of those umbrellas. And they have the target letter right next to them. But we can pull out some insights here where we already noted the DOK levels. You only get a 3 down towards the bottom there, but most of the time it's 1s and 2s. But if we look over here where it says CAT, thank you, Michael, Dr. Williams. If you look over here where it says CAT, that's computer adaptive test, right? That's the test that students have to take at the end of the year. They actually tell you the number of questions that students are going to get from each of those targets here on the line. And if we count them up, it comes to about 70-30 or 80-20. And the suggestion is that teachers spend about 80% of their time when they're preparing for the CAASPP up here in the priority cluster, right, with all of these priority targets. And of course, we know the standards within those targets are considered to be essential standards or power standards or major standards. They're known by many different names, right? Notice that the performance tasks are at 0. So there's no performance tasks on this level because those are those higher DOKs. You hit those performance tasks with the SMPs down in claims 2, 3, and 4. So getting this knowledge, this background knowledge is really important for us to start off when we're looking at this comparison between the SBAC blueprint and the California framework. So I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Williams in a second, but I want to show you the breakdown. Dr. Williams, you could go to the next slide. That's perfect. This is the breakdown that we're going to be working with today when we look at these 2 documents, right? Claim 1 here, that comes from the SBAC blueprint, and then as do claims 2, 3, and 4 here on the right. And we've broken it down for you. We try to make it as clear as we could with this little visual here. Claim 1 deals with grade level standards. So you're dealing with, this is where we do that comparison between the SBAC blueprint and the California framework. And the framework itself is broken down by domains, which are even larger umbrellas, and then the targets again, and then the standards. So you might guess here that we're going to be, when we do our comparison, we're going to be focusing in on targets because both the framework and the blueprint work with targets, right? But with claims 2, 3, and 4, you're just focusing in on the SMPs. Okay, I'm going to turn this over back to Dr. Williams, who's going to walk you through the framework aspect of it and the comparison.
So one just quick question for all of us who could drop this answer in the chat. After Thomas kind of went through the SBAC blueprint, just the overall understanding of the SBAC blueprint, what is your current understanding of that 11th grade blueprint in terms of how you implement that? Are you 1, minimal, 2, we're developing, 3, I'm advanced, I know the blueprint, I understand it, I could kind of give this training? It's always good to just help us understand sort of where we're headed here. Awesome. So yeah, it's 1s and 2s, if that's where we are, that's not a bad place to be. We're gonna go ahead and jump in. What I'd like to talk to you about, one of the things that we always share, and today we're gonna focus on an integrated pathway, but we do have this training and this work done on the traditional pathway as well. When we give this training, we always call this 3 courses, 1 test, because essentially in the high schools, our students are going to take the 11th grade CAASPP or 11th grade SBAC, but it's going to be rooted in 3 courses that they've already taken, which is it's going to assess their knowledge of those 3 courses. And so as we're looking at the integrated framework here, this your California framework, if you were to take this framework, depending on what you teach, you might have Math 1, Math 2, Math 3, or Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. What you'll notice here is that this is going to be your course. You'll have your categories, which are your bolded blue terms, and then underneath are those domains that Thomas was talking about. And then each of these bullet points are your targets. But what we don't see here underneath each of these targets are the actual standards. And so if we were to take any course that we teach right now, we put it side by side with the SBAC blueprint. What we try to do is we try to look and make sure we can make some connections and understand how these two documents work together. Again, this is your course. But this is how the SBAC is going to assess students' understanding. So if we were to look, and we see that these target letters are all out of order here, and if we were to look and read across the assessment targets, you would look over to your framework or your course and you would find an identical representation or written statement of that target. So, for example, here, target D, interpret the structure of expressions. If you were to read down, you're going to see here it is, interpret the structure of expressions. And we see that that is one of the priority targets here. And we, like Thomas was telling you earlier about the DLK levels and the computer adaptive test. If you're looking here, reason quantitatively and use units to solve problems, you're going to see down here in the supporting cluster, it's written exactly the same verbatim. So if we were to kind of play the matching game here and do this with each of our courses, you would see that for integrated Math 1, you're going to see all of the different targets that are assessed on the 11th grade SBAC from this course. Now, what you might notice is that not all targets are represented in this course. So what this tells us is that as you're looking at the blueprint, these areas that have target letters are where you are your areas of emphasis, right? So we're going to cover all of these targets in our course, but we're only going to make sure that make sure students have really solid proficiency and understanding of the targets in which the SBAC is going to assess, especially the priority targets. One of the things you'll notice is that you look here at solve systems of equations, that typically is something that is covered for quite a bit of time in a course, but it's not actually even represented as an area that's assessed on the 11th grade blueprint. So again, we know that solving systems of equations is actually also assessed as one of those EE standards in 8th grade. But I know for a lot of times math teachers, especially ones that are teaching, Algebra 1 or Math 1, we see solved systems of equations often. And so that's just something to think about, that when we're looking at these two documents, whether it's an integrated Math 1, integrated Math 2, if we were to do the same work, we would notice that there you see again, interpret the structure of expressions is still represented in integrated Math 2. If you were to make those connections, you'll see that certain targets get prioritized in integrated Math 2 that are not necessarily prioritized in the other courses. So again, it really is thinking about the course that you teach and making sure that we're emphasizing those gold targets and really making sure that, yeah, we still want students to develop an understanding of the other targets, but remember that the assessment is going to assess these gold and blue targets there. Same thing if we were to do finally with integrated Math 3. One thing that I want to point out is that, again, across all three courses in an integrated model, you're going to see interpret the structure of expressions. Now, essentially what you are seeing is that across all three courses, interpret the structure of expressions, they're interpreting the structure of different expressions. So in Algebra 1 or Math 1, they're looking at those linear expressions. We know that as they move along the trajectory in those different courses, they're still interpreting the structure of expressions, but they're starting to do them with different types of expressions. So they're going to start looking at polynomials and quadratics and other different types of expressions when it comes to the different courses. So what we've done here, and most people they always want to make sure we get an opportunity to go through this. What we've done is we've taken each of the courses and we have listed the standards that are focused on and should be emphasized in each of the courses that are taught across the high schools. So again, back to that target D, in IM1, they're doing linear, in IM2, quadratic, and then IM3, polynomial and logarithmic functions. So we see that we know target D is an area that we really want to make sure we emphasize because it's across all those courses. And you'll see that here as how it's represented in this chart. And so if you could take one thing away from just any of the conversations that I've had with you this morning, is that remember that your California framework is your course. So Math 1, Math 2, Math 3, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry. And your SBAC blueprint is how you're going to, how your content or those targets are going to be assessed. And so you want to make sure that you emphasize the priority or those targets that go across, and you want to make sure that those are that students are really proficient in those standards so that they can be successful when it comes to the SBAC. So I'm going to hand it back over to Thomas, Dr. D.
Thank you.
I'll pop out of
Wonderful.
this one here and I'll take
Great.
you on.
You want to show the traditional just for a second,
Yeah,
just in
sure.
case anyone's traditional, because we have the same activity. We don't have time to go into it, right? But we do have that
Absolutely.
overview. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
absolutely.
here.
So
Maybe just
Yeah.
show the overview.
yeah, the big difference in the traditional pathway is obviously we know the courses are named a little bit differently. We would go through that same process of looking at the different targets and how they're represented through each of the courses in the traditional pathway. The one thing that I would definitely want to call out about the traditional pathway is that geometry, when you look and you do that work about looking at the different targets, you're going to see that only one target letter is represented in geometry, and that's that define trigonometric ratios and solve problems involving right triangles. But we also like to point out that there are a lot of other targets where geometry really contributes meaningfully on the SBAC, and so those targets are listed here along with the geometry standards that are addressed. And so we just want to make sure, especially as students are moving into Algebra 2 and other courses, that they really have some of those geometry concepts mastered as they move through that traditional pathway. And then again, coming back to the last course in that pathway of Algebra 2, if we were to do that same work, we have the same target alignment built out for the traditional pathway that we have for the integrated pathway. So overall, just to wrap, just to kind of just know that one of the things we always say is that no math course, no one math course owns the assessment. So across all the courses, we always say that there's a collective responsibility for all our courses to address what's going to take place on the SBAC. Okay, Thomas. Now I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Great. All right. Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. And as Dr. Williams was referring to, when we come into a school, we do like to do that refamiliarization. We would like to help teachers make those connections, whether you're doing the traditional pathway, the AAG, or the integrated math. And I'm going to share with you right now a tool that we've created to bring both of those documents to life for teachers in the classroom and to make things easy for teachers when they're trying to make sense of all of this information. Now we've got, this is the Next Gen Math platform. And what I'm showing you right now is the standards builder. This is just one of the ways that teachers can create assignments and assessments on the platform. It's by far the most popular with teachers because, as I'm going to show you, you can actually pick and choose your question types and your standards, and you get that background information about the CAASPP while you're working. Now, with the standards builder, we go from K to 12, and as you can see here, we've got both the traditional pathway, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, and the integrated math pathway. But we've also got the entire 11th grade Claim 1 from the SBAC blueprint on there. So I'm going to stick with that one today just to give you an example of the kinds of things that the platform can do. You'll notice right off the bat that the standards builder is organized like the framework. So you've got your domains here, the real number system, then your targets, and then you've got your standards. But these are not just standards, these are question types for the standards that teachers can pick and choose from. And they're all unlimited. I'm going to show you what that means in a second. But for NRN1 here, we've got two different ways that teachers can teach or assess NRN1 on the platform. For NRN2, we've got 6 different ways that teachers can use to teach or assess. Now, the other thing to notice about the standards builder is that you've got the color coding, and the color coding is going to be directly linked to the SBAC blueprint. So your essential standards are in gold and your supporting are in blue. Remember, I mentioned that the goal is to spend about 80% of your instructional time on the essential standards. So knowing which ones are gold, which ones are blue, essential and supporting is paramount when we're trying to make sense of our pacing guide and how we're going to spend our time in the classroom as teachers. Now, I'm going to pretend that I'm an 11th grade teacher. I'm teaching ASSE 1B today, and in my pacing guide is calling for that. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a couple question types and drag and drop them into the builder. And once they're in the builder, then I can go ahead and I can hit this little plus sign. And what that plus sign is doing is it's copying that question type and it's changing the nouns and numbers. So I have unlimited questions for anything that I build on the platform. I'm going to go ahead and call this just an exit ticket. The idea is that we are supplementing our core curriculum with the platform. And at the same time, we're preparing students for the CAASPP because we're exposing them to the academic language and the rigor that they're going to experience when they sit down for the CAASPP. So I've created my little assignment here. It's auto-saved here to my collection up at the top. And I can share that assignment out with other teachers. I can also share data with other teachers. But once I've created it, I can either print it or push it out online. I'm going to show you the print version first, just to give you an idea what it looks like. You can see here the academic language and the rigor. It's very indicative of what they'll experience on the CAASPP. Down below, we have created conceptual and procedural videos. They're under 3 minutes. They're very Khan-esque. And you can actually print this out and send it home with students so they could use their phone or tablet and get access to those videos at home. But probably one of the most powerful features here is this refresh questions button. Because when I hit refresh, it's going to continually change the nouns and numbers. So I have unlimited worksheets for anything I build on the platform. There are a number of other ways you can change this. You can add workspace. You can also change it to Spanish. And we've built this button so that students have access to local Spanish. You can change it back to Spanish, and you can also use the refresh questions button when you're in Spanish. But I want to show you what that same assignment looks like online. So I'm going to quickly hit preview here and give you an example of what it looks like for the students online. You'll notice it's designed to look like the CAASPP, not just the academic language and the rigor, but also the format, and that really comes through with the online version here. Students have access to a drawing tool so they can show you their work online. And you can also use this as a teaching tool if you project it on the screen. And you have the tutorials here, the conceptual videos that I talked about. And students also have AI lessons available to them. Now, teachers can turn any of these features on or off for students before they assign on the platform. I wanted to show you one more thing the Standards Builder can do before I show you some of the other features. The Standards Builder, I'm going to go back to that example that I am an 11th grade teacher, and let's just say I'm teaching APR 1 here in class, and I know that my students are not at grade level. So what I can do is drag and drop that one standard into the builder. And once it's there, I can hit this down caret. And then I can go back as many grade levels as I want. And I'm going to go ahead and click all of them, bring them all in here. And now I have all the prerequisite standards, in this case, going back to first grade. You can go back to kindergarten if you need to. But if I push this out, I get a diagnostic. My students get a diagnostic that starts really easy in first grade, gets harder as they get to grade level. They get exposed to that grade level standard I want them to master, but I'm going to get the data back showing me where those gaps are for the students. We call this the progression playlist. We have all the coherence mapping built into the platform for you. Now, that's the standards builder. It's only one way teachers can can create assignments and assessments, but we have a lot of pre-made assessments as well, domain assessments, which are basically like IABs. They're about 15 questions each, and they'll show you whether they are a major or supporting. And target practice, which these are about 10 questions each. These are like little mini target quick checks. They're like FIABs as well. And some diagnostics where you can just test the essential standards if you like. Okay. One more thing I want to show you before I turn it back over to Dr. Williams is the data. Now, the data on the platform is really useful in that with anything you push out on the platform, you can click on it and hit this retake button over here. And when you hit retake, it's going to take that whole assignment or assessment, copy it, change all the nouns and numbers, and let you push it out at a date that you choose. So that way you're comparing apples to apples, and you'll get to that data the data will come together so you can see it, the progress over time and do that monitoring. I'm going to show you what that looks like. So this teacher pushed out the retake twice. So now they have a pre-test, a mid-test, and a post-test, and they could look at each one individually. But because they use the retake button, they also get a summary tab, and that's going to show them progress over time from take 1 to take 2 to take 3. If they want to get more granular, they can actually look at each student and see their percentage of growth from the first take to the last take. But if I'm in a single take and I'm looking at my data, a lot of times the problem with our data is that we have all this great, beautiful data, but we don't have time to do anything with it. So on the platform, you get some great, beautiful data. You'll get your little matrix here, and I can break it down to its bare bones and look at the averages. I get a little meta-exceeded chart. I can look at the domains that were tested. I can say, well, what were the standards within those domains? And I can also look at the question types that were asked. But this is a small amount of data. It's only 6 students, about 4 questions. If you've got 30 students and 30 questions on a test, that's a lot more data to pull apart. And a lot of times we don't have that resource of time. So we've built 2 buttons at the top, Tier 2 intervention and Tier 3 support. If I hit Tier 2 intervention, it's going to do that work for me. It's going to disaggregate all that data, and it's going to put my students into intervention groups for me. So from here, I'll know who missed it, who got it right for each question. I can preview the question and have unlimited practice questions. And then when I'm done with my reteaching, I can assign from here to just that group for just that question, more practice. And Tier
Hey,
3 does
Thomas,
this. Yes, go
sorry, I
ahead,
don't want
Paula.
to, I know we're coming up to time, and
Yeah,
I wanted
I'm,
to
go
ask you
ahead.
just on for if you're a high school teacher, right? If you have lots of sections,
Yes.
and I think you've shown that the SBAC that your 11th graders are going to take, you're really your class probably doesn't cover everything that they need. So can you talk a little bit about using this sort of as a supplemental platform? Like how could you use it if you were a high school teacher?
Yeah, thank you, Paula. I think the standards builder is probably the most powerful way to do that. Where if you were a high school teacher, whether you're teaching integrated math or the traditional model, you can focus in on your class, right? So if I'm teaching Algebra 1, I'll have just what I need for Algebra 1, right? Okay.
Great,
So
thank you.
are there any questions on the platform itself before we move on? I want to jump back into um, see, let me share my screen here. And one last thing here I want to do. I'm going to go ahead and put ourselves on this one. And if you are interested, we have a 90-day free trial. And if you're interested in taking part of that trial, it comes with 2 free trainings. And what we do right at the beginning is when we come into your schools, we'll work with the teachers on refamiliarizing them with those 2 documents like we talked about. Go into it a little bit more detail. But if you want to take part in that trial, you can use this QR code. And there'll be, when you click on the QR code, and Paul is also going to put a link into the chat, you can click on the calendar, choose a date and time that you want to meet with us, and we will sit down for about 15 minutes on the Zoom and get you set up on that free trial. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Michael.
We have one question in the chat as well. I don't know if you noticed that.
Let's
Yeah,
see here.
and I know we're getting close to time.
Yeah.
Again, I know that Thomas, thank you so much for taking us through that. It's can be really a game changer to really help teachers understand and identify gaps because that as for high school teachers, it just gets really complex when you're teaching such high level content and you have students in your classrooms that are potentially two, three, four, five grade levels behind. So our goal is really to help students close those gaps. And I'm gonna turn it back over to Shay. I know you guys have like a wrap up, right?
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Williams. Thank you, Dr. Deus. I think you guys shared a lot of good information for leaders to be able to take back. And so, as a reminder, you all, we will send a recording out. We will send their contact information out so that you can follow up if you have any questions or if you want to continue the conversation. But I do want to open it just for Q&As that you may have for our amazing speakers today. And you can either put it in the chat or come off of mute.
Hopefully it was able to, we went really fast. I know we do.
Mm.
Normally we do like a full-on PD and we dig in and we went super fast.
I know there
But
was a
just,
question in the chat
yes, let's
about
talk.
that transition from going from an integrated model to a traditional model. And to Paula's point, it'll be important to really map out what standards were addressed, what targets were addressed, what targets were not addressed in terms of having students move from course to course. And then really thinking about and considering for those students that are still struggling, how you can design those intervention and acceleration opportunities for those students based on the coursework. So, yeah, there's lots and lots of so many things to talk about because it gets very complex.
And we had one last question. Abel asked if we have Next Gen Math, is there a PD that we can do with teachers on this to refresh?
Yes.
Absolutely.
We
I will,
actually
yeah, go ahead.
offer free, sorry, I'm taking yours, answering Mike. But yes, we offer free countdown to CAS PD for any partner as well, right?
I'll put my email in the chat, Abel. Feel free to
Yeah.
reach out to me, and I will get you that scheduling link, and you can get your staff scheduled up, especially around this time of the year. It's a perfect time to start counting down to CASP.
Well, with that, thank you all for spending a part of your Wednesday with us. Like I said, you will receive the recording and the slides, and then we will include the contact of Next Gen Math in case you want to follow up. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at hello@Parsec if you have a Parsec related question. But if not, we will see you all next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Shay.
Thank
Yeah.
you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.